The email came on a Tuesday afternoon. Not a phone call, not a face-to-face conversation, an email. The subject line read, "About the wedding." I was at work, on my lunch break, eating a sandwich I had packed from home to save money. Saving money had been my religion for 30 years. Every dollar stretched, every sacrifice calculated, every decision made with one person in mind: my daughter. I opened the email with the quiet excitement I'd felt for months. Wedding planning had consumed our lives. The venue in Paris, the dress from that boutique she had fallen in love with, the wedding planner who cost more than my monthly salary. I had paid for almost all of it. 2 jobs, early mornings, late nights, saying no to things I wanted so I could say yes to everything she needed. I told myself this was normal. This was what mothers did. I started reading. "Mom, I've been thinking about the wedding, and after discussing it with Andre and his family, we've decided it would be better if you didn't come in person to Paris." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The venue is intimate, and with Andre's family and their social circle, we need to maintain a certain atmosphere. But we'll set up a YouTube live stream so you can watch from home. You'll still be part of it, just remotely. YouTube Live. Not even a private video call? A public stream, like I was a stranger? Like a distant observer who didn't deserve a seat but could watch from the digital sidelines. My sandwich slipped from my hands onto my lap, and I didn't notice right away. I kept rereading the email, searching for the sentence that would tell me this was a misunderstanding, a mistake, a poorly worded joke. There was nothing. This was real. I sat in my car in the diner's parking lot after my shift ended, staring at the screen until the words blurred. Something inside me, something that had been bending quietly for 30 years, finally cracked. My name is Maria Santos, and I became a mother at 19. No family money, no college degree, no safety net. Just me, a baby girl named Sophie, and the certainty that her life would be bigger than mine. Sophie's father left before she was born. He signed away his rights and disappeared as if neither of us had ever existed. From the beginning, it was just the two of us. I worked at a diner during the day and cleaned offices at night. Sophie went from daycare to a neighbor's couch, then eventually stayed home alone, doing homework while I worked my second shift. "When will you be home, Mama?" she used to ask. "Soon," I'd say. "Do your reading. I'll check it when I get back." I missed parent-teacher conferences because I couldn't get time off. I missed school plays because they happened during my shift. I showed up to her high school graduation still wearing my work uniform because I came straight from a double shift. I hated that part, the way I stood out, the way I didn't look like the other parents. But I made sure she had what mattered: good schools, SAT prep classes I could barely afford, college application fees, a laptop for essays, everything that could open a door. She got into a prestigious university. A full scholarship-covered tuition, but room and board still cost more than I made in 3 months. So I took on weekend shifts at a third job. "You don't have to do all this," she said once. "Yes, I do," I told her. "You're going to have opportunities I never had. You're going to be something." And she was. She graduated with honors, landed a job at an international consulting firm, and started traveling. She started changing, too, speaking differently, dressing differently, introducing me as Maria instead of Mom when her colleagues were around. I told myself it was confidence, sophistication, success. I told myself a lot of things, because it was easier than admitting I was slowly becoming something she needed less and less. She met André Beaumont at a work conference in London. French, old money, the kind of background that exists in history books and period dramas, not in the lives of girls whose mothers clean offices for a living. His family owned vineyards in Provence and a penthouse in Paris that had been passed down for generations. She called me, breathless. "Mom, he proposed! We're getting married in Paris!" I was happy for her, truly. I wanted her to have everything, even if it was far from the world I understood. She talked about André's mother, Céline, who sat on museum boards, about his father, Philippe, who spoke about wine the way other people talked about religion. She said they were excited to meet me someday, when the timing was right. That day never came. The wedding planning started immediately. Paris, because André's family refused to travel to the United States for what Céline called a casual American wedding. They chose Le Pavillon Le Doyen, overlooking the Champs-Élysées. Sophie picked a Dior dress because, as she said, if we're doing this in Paris, it should be real Paris. I told her I would figure it out. And I did. $42,000 for the venue, $12,000 for the dress, $6,000 for the planner, thousands more for flowers, catering, photography, music. Every invoice came to my email. Every payment came from my account. When I asked what André's family was contributing, Sophie said they were handling the French side. The French side turned out to be wine. $79,000 in total. My savings, my retirement, 30 years of planning, gone. For a wedding in Paris that, apparently, I wasn't polished enough to attend. I met André's family exactly once. They flew to New York for what Sophie called a casual dinner, held at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Manhattan. I wore my best dress, the one I'd bought for Sophie's graduation years earlier. It still fit. It still looked respectable. Céline and Philippe arrived in a car service, dressed like they were attending an opera. Céline smiled at me politely, the way you smile at something that doesn't quite belong. "You must be Maria," she said, her accent turning my name into something foreign. The conversation began pleasantly enough. Céline asked about my work, and for a moment I thought she was genuinely interested. Philippe asked about Sophie's childhood, and I shared small stories, careful not to embarrass my daughter. I relaxed. I shouldn't have. When the wine arrived, the tone shifted. Philippe spoke about vineyards and heritage. Céline spoke about tradition and refinement. Their compliments carried comparisons. Their curiosity felt like evaluation. Sophie sat between us, quiet, tense, saying nothing. Near the end of the meal, Céline leaned forward. "Maria, we're so grateful for everything you've done for Sophie. She's come so far from her origins." Origins. As if I was a place she had escaped. "We want the wedding to reflect her future, not her past." I understood then. Completely. I was the past, and the past wasn't invited to Paris. On the ride home, I cried. Not because they looked down on me, but because my daughter had sat there and let them. 2 days after the email, I was added to a family group chat. My sister, Elena, my cousin, Rita, my aunt, Carmen, and Sophie. "Hi, everyone," Sophie wrote. "Quick update on the wedding plans. The venue in Paris is confirmed. Mom won't be able to make it due to travel constraints, but we'll set up a live stream so she can watch. She's completely fine with it." Travel constraints. Not that I had been asked not to come, not that I had been excluded, just travel constraints, as if I were the one who had chosen absence. Elena replied first. "Maria, are you sure? It's your daughter's wedding." Before I could respond, Sophie wrote again. She's totally supportive. She knows how small the venue is and wants what's best for us, right, Mom? I stared at the screen, feeling something twist in my chest. She had turned my silence into agreement. I typed, "We should talk about this privately." She didn't respond to me, but she added, "Mom's just emotional about the distance. She'll feel better once she sees how beautiful the live stream will be." The conversation moved on. Paris, flowers, dresses. No one questioned my absence anymore. I left the group chat. My phone rang less than a minute later. Sophie. "Why did you leave the chat?" she asked. "Why did you lie to them?" I said. "She didn't lie," she replied. "There are travel issues, time off work, costs." "You didn't uninvite me because of logistics." Silence. "I'm trying to make this work for everyone," she said. "No," I answered. "You're trying to make it work for Andre's family." She asked if we could talk later. I told her there was nothing left to explain. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, realizing something I hadn't wanted to admit. She wasn't confused. She was choosing. She came to my apartment 2 days later. She looked composed, professional, like she was heading into a meeting instead of confronting her mother. "We need to handle this calmly," she said, "rationally." "There's nothing rational about what you did," I replied. She tried to explain. Family dynamics, expectations, pressure, words that sounded reasonable until you listened closely. "Whose expectations?" I asked. "Mine or Andre's?" She hesitated, just long enough for the truth to surface. "This wedding is about my future," she said, "not my past." The words landed slowly, each one heavier than the last. "So, I'm your past," I said. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant," I answered. "You're ashamed of me." "I'm not ashamed," she said quickly. "I'm being realistic." "Realistic about what?" "About the world I'm marrying into, about how things look." "And how do I look, Sophie?" She didn't answer. "If you can't be supportive," she finally said, her voice tightening, "maybe it's better you're not there at all." That was the moment. Not when she sent the email, not when she lied to the family. That sentence. She had chosen a version of her life where I was an inconvenience, something to manage quietly. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table until morning, surrounded by invoices and contracts, staring at numbers that represented 30 years of sacrifice. And for the first time, I stopped asking what she needed from me. I asked what I deserved. I opened my laptop and reviewed the remaining payments. $31,000 still outstanding. Dress alterations, photography, flowers, transportation, all scheduled to be charged to my account in the coming weeks. I drafted an email to the wedding planner. I stared at it for a long time before sending it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't impulsive. I was clear. I informed her that I would be canceling all remaining payments immediately, and that any non-refundable deposits were to be handled by Sophie directly. Then I made the calls. The boutique, the florist, the photographer. One by one, I withdrew my financial support. By morning, it was done. My phone started ringing before sunrise. Sophie, the planner. Andre. I let it ring. But as the confirmations arrived in my inbox, doubt crept in. Not doubt about being right, doubt about what this would destroy. I thought about Sophie as a little girl cutting out pictures of wedding dresses from magazines we couldn't afford. I wondered if I was protecting myself or punishing her. The line felt thinner than I expected. At 8 in the morning, a message came through. "What did you do?" Sophie wrote. I answered simply. I wasn't good enough to attend, but I was good enough to pay. That ends now. When the phone rang again, I didn't answer. I sat there, listening to it vibrate on the table, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. Sophie showed up at my apartment that afternoon. This time, she wasn't composed. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged, her hair pulled back carelessly as if she had run out of time to manage herself. "You can't do this," she said the moment I opened the door. "I already did," I answered. She stepped inside without waiting to be invited. "The wedding is in 5 weeks. I don't have that kind of money." "I didn't either," I said. "I found it. For you." She tried apologizing, tried explaining, tried blaming stress, pressure, expectations. Each word felt smaller than the one before. "You can fix this," she said. "Just call them back. The dress is altered, the photographer is booked, everything was planned with the assumption that that I would disappear and pay quietly?" I interrupted. She went silent. "You want my money, Sophie, not my presence. You want my sacrifice without my face in the room." "That's not fair," she cried. "None of this is fair," I replied. "I worked 2 jobs for 30 years so you could stand in rooms where people wouldn't look down on you. And the moment they looked down on me, you let them." She asked me to come to the wedding, said she wanted me there. I looked at her for a long moment. "Do you want me?" I asked. "Or do you want the $31,000? She didn't answer. "Get out," I said quietly. She left crying. I closed the door and stood in the silence, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not guilt. Relief. The weeks that followed were quiet. I blocked Sophie's number after the calls became too many to count. I blocked Andre's as well. When my sister called to accuse me of being cruel, I asked her what Sophie had told her. She didn't answer. I stopped following Sophie online, but people sent me screenshots anyway. Posts asking for last-minute recommendations, a rushed florist, a photographer willing to work cheap, a dress sourced locally in Paris. No explanations, just fragments. The wedding happened on a Saturday in June. I know because Sophie sent me a link 2 hours before the ceremony, a YouTube live stream. No message, no apology, just the link. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Instead, I went to a painting class at the community center, something I'd signed up for after quitting my night job, something I'd never had time for before. While my daughter walked down an aisle I had half paid for, I learned how to mix colors properly. The instructor said I had a good eye. That evening, photos appeared in my messages. Sophie in a simpler dress, flowers that looked fine but not extraordinary, everything scaled down to fit the budget she actually had. It was the wedding she could afford. And somehow, that felt right. 6 months later, a letter arrived. A real letter, forwarded from my old address to my new apartment. The envelope had French stamps. It was from Sophie. She wrote about the wedding, about how Andre's family noticed the changes, about how they asked what happened to the original plans. She admitted she tried to lie, vendor issues, scheduling problems. None of it worked. Eventually, she told them the truth, that I had withdrawn my financial support. She wrote about Celine's reaction, not concern for Sophie, but embarrassment for herself, about Philippe suggesting the wedding should have been postponed until it could be done properly. For the first time, Sophie said, she heard what they really thought of her, of where she came from. She wrote that she defended me then, that she finally said out loud what she had erased in silence for years. I don't expect forgiveness, the letter ended. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. Not to treasure it, not to destroy it, just to acknowledge it. Some lessons arrive too late to fix what they break. I never replied. Not out of cruelty, out of exhaustion. Paris became a symbol after that, not of what I lost, but of what I let go. I never went there. Instead, I paint it over and over, the city I paid for, the city I'll never see. And in every painting, I am finally absent by choice.